This is Solve It for Kids.
Hello, my amazing and curious friends. My name is Jennifer, the Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, and this is Solve It for Kids, the science podcast that gives kids and families a peek inside the real world of scientists, engineers, and experts as they solve problems in their jobs using creativity, cooperation, and critical thinking. And now please welcome to the show my podcast partner, Galactic Space Geek, Jeff Gagne.
Hello, Jennifer, and hello, listeners. Well, we have a very special reason to be talking to you today. We are celebrating something, Jennifer.
Yes, happy 5 years. 5
Woo! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of Solve It for Kids.
That's right.
And for these next couple of episodes, we are sharing some of our personal favorite best of episodes.
It's Solve It for Kids' 5-year anniversary. Here are Jen's favorite episodes.
So, my favorite episodes, the ones that I picked, were episode 82 with Madison Matson. How do you make toilet paper soft? I love talking about this one.
Yes.
Episode 132 with Rob Chambers of Lockheed Martin. How do you talk to a spaceship? And if you remember, this one happened while Orion, Artemis 1 mission was happening.
Yes.
So that one was so cool. This one, of course I absolutely love this one. Episode 104 with Gretchen Burson from the Georgia Aquarium. How do you train a shark? Right?
Whether sharks are on your mind all the time or not, that's an awesome episode.
It's just a cool question, isn't it? Then we have episode 146 with Dr. Mariah Mayor. What does a primatologist do? And she did a fabulous job with it.
Fascinating.
So fascinating. Episode 162, How do you dress an astronaut? With Sharon McDougall. And she actually, that was her job, was to dress the astronauts at NASA. How cool is that? These are some of my favorite episodes. So everybody take a listen to these, and if you want to hear the whole episode, don't forget to go to the website. Enjoy! What problem are we solving today?
How do you make toilet paper soft?
How do you make toilet paper soft? Oh, I'm so excited to hear this. Who is our guest, Jeff?
That's right, Jennifer. Today we have the fantastic Madison Matson, and she is a chemical engineer at a huge company making a product that we all use all the time.
Fantastic. Welcome to the show, Madison.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks, Jeff, for having me. I'm so excited to get started.
Oh, we are. Now, we already know. We heard the question, how do you make toilet paper soft? So before we go there, I want to ask, what does a chemical engineer do? And how does that relate to making toilet paper?
Well, that's a great question. A lot of people get confused and think that chemical engineering just has to do with just chemicals or just chemistry, but really it's anything having to do with the process of getting from point A to point B, and that can involve a chemical process. It can involve any kind of engineering, manipulating material. So in this case, when we're talking about toilet paper, we're going from a raw material into a finished product. And so we use a little bit of engineering, a little bit of problem solving to get from point A to point B.
Okay. Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. I definitely hear chemical engineer, and all I can imagine is different colored liquids in test tubes and a Bill Nye Science Guy sort of show happening, and that's all you do. But it definitely sounds like it is way more than that.
It is. Yep. So really, it's a very broad topic. Any kind of engineering, really, you're using critical thinking, problem solving, and in my case, it just happens to use a little bit of chemical properties and physical properties of the materials you're using.
So let's start from scratch. How do you pick the materials when you're making toilet paper? And maybe that sounds like a dumb question, but you have to know where to start, right?
Right. And that's a good question. So really with toilet paper, so you think it's a paper product. So if you think of making paper, you're going to think of maybe printer paper, newspaper, notebook paper, anything you can write on. And, paper comes from trees. We all know paper comes from trees, but in this case, so it's really papers coming from the fiber in the trees. So these little fibers are going to be the raw materials that we start with to combine them and make the paper that we want. And in this case, we're going to be using different types of different kinds of fibers to get either maybe a stack of printer paper or something soft like tissue paper or toilet paper.
Oh.
Okay. So take us one step farther between the printer paper and the softer papers like tissue or toilet paper. What gets added to either that makes the difference?
So really, if you're talking in like broad terms, we have two kinds of fibers. There's going to be softwood, which is a longer, like stronger fiber. And that's going to give you like your very like rough feeling, strong network of fibers that'll band together. And there's more surface area for them to latch on easily. That'll give you your extra strength, extra durability. And then there's a softer kind of fiber. It's called hardwood. It's a little bit of a shorter fiber, so it'll be not as strong. They won't like connect to each other as easily, won't get like that strong network to build your paper mold, but it'll give it that mint softness, fuzzy feel that you want to feel if you're a consumer. And if you're, if it's tissue paper, if it's something you're putting on your face or on your body. So that's something that, we'll use a little bit of a combination of the two. If you're using printer paper, you don't really care if it's soft. So you're going to less of those short, small fibers to get. That's really a combination of all those types.
Do you pick the tree that you want to get the fibers from there to make the product you're trying to make?
Yeah. So these trees are found in different parts of the world. Eucalyptus trees are trees that you find the softer hardwood fibers in. And then we have some southern craft trees, and those will have the stronger, fibers that you want for durability. But it all depends, they'll grow in different parts of the planet. So you want to pick and choose which ones you're taking which from. And that's how you get those properties.
Okay.
That's crazy, right? Would you ever have thought, Jeff, that you need to pick the right tree to get the soft toilet paper?
No. And honestly, I wasn't thinking about the softer papers like toilet paper or tissue coming from trees anyway. Even though it says it's a paper product, I was like, is it cotton or some other kind of fiber? But because it does come from trees, it makes me want to go check out the different paper products in my house right now and look at them really closely to see how well I can see fibers in them.
Could you do that? Can you look at the different fibers and stuff in like paper towels versus toilet paper?
Yeah. So if you look, you'll have to look really, really closely to be able to see it. But the best thing is you'll be able to feel it really easily. Even the difference between something you think like maybe toilet paper and paper towels will be pretty similar types of paper, but paper towels will feel on the surface really rough. Maybe a little bit of like lint softness on the surface. But if you compare it to something like a nice soft roll of toilet paper, you can see like the fuzzy layer where you're getting all those like soft hardwood fibers that's meant to make it soft to touch.
It is an out of this world episode. So what problem are we solving today?
How do you talk to a spaceship?
How do you talk to a spacecraft? I have a feeling that this is going to be a very, very exciting answer. Who is our guest today, Jeff?
Today's guest is Rob Chambers, and he is the Director of Business Development and Human Spaceflight Developer for Lockheed Martin.
Welcome to the show, Rob.
Hello, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks, you guys.
We are so thrilled to have you because, of course, what we're going to be talking about is Callisto, which is on the Orion spacecraft. So, we are so excited because Jeff and I are going to the Artemis launch, unless it's already launched by the time you hear this. But I want to start at the very beginning. Have you always loved space? Even as a kid, did you know you wanted to do this?
I have always loved space. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with space. When I was a kid, I remember the magazines sitting around with the Apollo astronauts on it and a lot of excitement about what was going on. And all I knew was like, space is cool. And so then fast forward, 18 years, and I got into college and I said, all right, I want to build the spaceships and I want to build the ones that the humans fly in.
Okay. And that's already hugely narrowed down from all of the things that you could do in space.
Exactly.
From astronomer, planetary science. That is a huge narrowing down. What made you decide to pick building the spacecraft that humans get into?
Yeah, I was thinking back to when I was a little kid, and the thing that excited me the most was the idea of human eyes and human brains processing on behalf of everybody what they see and what they touch and what they feel. Wow. And that connection just appealed to me. And I'm like, I want to make that happen. And, I was born after we landed on the moon the first time. And I say I've been a little bitter about that I missed it. So I want to get...
Dear Mom and Dad.
Dear well, I'm the youngest of 7 kids. And I'm like, the other 6 got to see. And so I said, look, I want to get humans back on the moon. And then I want to get humans to Mars. That's what I want to do in the career that I've got.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. So tell us kind of what you do at Lockheed Martin and what Lockheed Martin has done for space so far.
Oh, it's an awesome place to work. I work with some of the smartest women and men I have ever met in my whole life. The group that I'm in actually does a whole bunch of different types of science and commercial activities associated with space. So I've got a group that does the robotic missions. For those of you that want to get out and do some Google searching, Juno is around Jupiter, and it has discovered that the poles of Jupiter don't look anything like we thought they did. There's these cyclones that move around the poles. Absolutely amazing. We built OSIRIS-REx, which went up to and grabbed a sample from the asteroid Bennu, and it's going to be coming back next summer with that sample.
Wow. So exciting.
Oh my gosh. And we've done every mission to Mars. My colleagues here at Lockheed Martin have worked on, starting with Viking back in 1976. Those folks are retired at this point, but we've been part of all these missions to the planet. So that's the robotics folks. And then we've got weather and climate. We build all the weather satellites at Lockheed. And then commercial communications. We built over, I think, 600 commercial communication satellites. The area that I spend the most of my time in, though, is human spaceflight. So we started building Orion over 10 years ago. I was on the initial team. I was there when we started. And,
that's so cool.
For those that have never gotten selected, it's like winning a huge contest at school. You're sitting there in the room, you're waiting for them to say, who's going to build this spacecraft, right? And they announced it's Lockheed Martin. And literally, there was probably 50 people in the room with me. And we were all literally jumping up and down and screaming and shouting and hugging. And then we stopped and we're like, oh my gosh, now we got to go build this.
Now we have to do it.
Oh, wait, they just awarded us a lot of work to do.
Exactly. That was the last time we celebrated. No, it's every single day you go into work, it's a blast. So I got to work on guidance and navigation and control for the first several years. Wow. I led that whole team along with some partners at NASA. And that figures out, like, where is the spacecraft? Where was it going? Right. How do we get there? Closed loop control and manual piloting. And then after that, I worked on all of flight software. So we've got over 2 million lines of code on the spacecraft. So, and it's all C++ before anybody asks. It's not basic. It's C++, which at the time was pretty cutting edge, right? Now you're all like, why aren't you using Python?
Right. Sure. Okay. So since you were there right at the beginning of Orion, and the program that we're going to get to talking about is on the Orion spacecraft.
Yep.
I would like to ask, how did you and your colleagues decide how big the Orion spacecraft is going to be? I have seen a mock-up of it at Space Center Houston, and, there's 4 seats inside with some quality floating around room. How did you decide on 4, not 3 like Apollo, or not 6 or 7 like an SUV?
Right.
Yeah. Actually, the simplest answer, because you'll get different answers from everyone you ask.
Okay.
The one that makes the most sense to me, my answer, which is the right answer, is when you think about explorers, you need 2 people. That's actually why Apollo was the way it was, right? So the crew module commander, the capsule commander, stayed, if you recall, up on orbit, and then the 2 folks came down in the landers.
Right.
So when you go exploring, you want a backup, you need a buddy, right? Never go by yourself.
Yes.
Good words to live by. Well, those are words to live by at the moon as well. And so the concept is we have 4 people on the spacecraft. We fly out to the Gateway and dock with Gateway. Gateway, if you have not heard of it, is think of it as a really lightweight, small, perfectly sized, small orbiting station around the moon. That's sort of the base camp, if you will. So 2 people will stay there, monitor the systems, and the other 2 people will climb into the lander and land on the moon.
What problem are we solving today?
How do you train a shark?
How do you train a shark? This is going to be fantastic. Who is our guest today, Jeff?
Our guest today is the fantastic Gretchen Burson. She is an aquarist, too, at the Georgia Aquarium. And that's right, listeners, she is a shark trainer.
Welcome to the show, Gretchen.
Hi, thanks for having me on, you guys.
Oh, we are so excited. First of all, I have to say, I love the Georgia Aquarium. It is so cool. So I'm going to start with an easy one. How did you end up working there? Like, have you loved the ocean and animals your whole life and this is your dream job? Or did you just kind of be like, ooh, I want to go work with sharks?
That is a question I get all the time, but I love answering it. I mean, basically, it started back in first grade when I was obsessed with dolphins. I mean, you can chalk it up to Lisa Frank and all that stuff with all the dolphins that we have folders and whatnot. But I lived in Florida and I absolutely loved the ocean and I fell in love. I told my parents I was going to be a dolphin trainer. Not quite.
You're close.
Yeah, there you go.
So close.
But yeah, I went to school. I got my bachelor's degree in biology and I spent all of my excess time volunteering and interning at aquariums and different kind of like sea life. I've worked anywhere with a sea turtle to sharks and things alike.
Wow. That sounds so cool.
It does. And knowing that you can link your passion for what you do all the way back to first grade, that is really cool, especially for our listeners in terms of it doesn't matter how old you are. If it's something that you really, really love, look, Gretchen is proof it may come to be exactly what you do.
Absolutely.
So, did you always know that you wanted to work at an aquarium rather than some other form of working, like doing research out in the ocean or something like that?
No, actually, I didn't know I wanted to work at an aquarium until somebody brought it up that they're like, hey, maybe you should volunteer at an aquarium. And I was going through school and I was like, well, that's a great idea. Like just to get my like toes in the water there and kind of experience what's out there. So that's what I did. And basically I started doing it. I was like, this is actually really cool. And they do a lot of research and conservation as well, not just like outside of the aquarium, but in the aquarium. So this was a really good opportunity to get hands-on experience with animals while also kind of dipping my toes into the research and conservation aspect.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know aquariums do a lot, and they actually have a lot of great information for people that go and kind of walk along and talk all about, you know, the things that you can do to support wildlife and animals in the ocean and whatever. So now I want to ask you about your title. What is an aquarist? Because I'm not familiar with that term.
So basically what an aquarist is it's somebody who takes care of the fish. So we take care of basically anything from a tiny tetra to, you know, a great big shark. Those are all fish.
Oh, and it's your job to feed them, clean the tanks, all that kind of stuff, or?
Absolutely. Everything you can think of, anywhere from designing their diets to make sure they're getting proper nutrition, to cleaning the habitat that they live in, to make sure that the water quality is good. We do it all. So we do everything to take care of these animals.
Cool.
Okay. That sounds more involved than I think I've ever thought about when I've visited an aquarium before. I would like to have you expand just a little bit on designing their diet. Could you say a little bit more about what you're doing there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when you're looking at an animal, you have to take into consideration a bunch of different things, like where their normal region is, where they would be found, what fish they would find there.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to feed like a cold water fish to a warm water fish or something like that, especially with our sharks. We're not going to feed them something that's not a normal part of their diet, because we could potentially give them a tummy ache.
Oh, well, right.
Okay.
So do you also do the checkups on the animals too and all that kind of stuff like they do at the zoo and everything?
We do assist the vets. So we do have a veterinary team who is the main of those, doing all of that stuff. But what we'll do is we'll assist them. So what we do is we train the animals to be able to behave while we do the certain checkups that they need to do.
Oh, okay. That is cool. So now that we know a little bit more about what an aquarist is there a particular part of your job that you like the most? Feeding? Is it the caring for? Is it sort of the habitat settings?
I mean, it depends on the day, sometimes some things better than others. But I mean, I really do enjoy diving in our exhibit and really getting close, and personal with our animals. Obviously, feeding them gives me a good indication of where they're at in their health and how they are that day. So it really just depends. I really do enjoy training our zebra sharks probably the most. That's an animal that I get to get like hands-on with and really touch and get to know them pretty well.
Yeah, that was my big question. Okay, talk to us about training a shark. And so, of course, we're imagining that you're getting into a tank with great whites, which I'm assuming no. So zebra sharks are much, much different. Can you kind of explain the difference and talk about some of the training that you do with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, every shark that we have in our shark exhibit, which is the department that I'm directly in, does have a species-specific target, meaning that each species goes to a specific target to feed. So we do that to make sure that these animals can get their proper nutrition and diet. So with that, we have to do like a process of several steps where we have to like integrate this target next to their feeding station or like where we're feeding them. So we have to get their attention somehow, and that can involve using a light, using a sound cue, using like a big yellow trash can lid, stuff like that, anything that would really stick out in the exhibit. And once we get the animal that we are like looking to have come over, we'll reward them when they come over to that target. And so it kind of becomes associated. That target means food.
What problem are we solving today?
What does a primatologist do?
Ooh, what does a primatologist do? This is going to be a fantastic discussion. Who is our guest today, Jeff?
Our guest today is the terrific Dr. Mireya Mayor. She is the Director of Exploration and Science Communication for Florida International University. She is also a National Geographic explorer.
Welcome to the show, Dr. Mireya.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
We are excited to have you, and we have so much to talk about. I mean, you discovered a whole new species, which is so awesome. Yeah. But I like to start from the beginning. Were you always a kid who liked to be outdoors, and did you always like primates?
So I'm kind of a weird one.
Okay.
Good start.
I loved being outdoors. I was
awesome.
Pretty much a street kid from the time that I could pretty much, get out there on my own. But I grew up in a big city. I grew up in Miami, Florida, an area called Little Havana, where there were a lot of Cuban immigrants. And my mom, who is herself a Cuban immigrant, was super overprotective. So I remember asking her if I could join the Girl Scouts. And she said, no way, that's far too dangerous. Right?
Girl Scouts.
Okay.
Can you believe it? So talk about being sheltered that way. So I didn't grow up, camping and hiking and doing all the things that I probably would have really loved to do. But funny enough, kind of like my friend, Dr. Jane Goodall, which a lot of your listeners probably have heard of.
That's a pretty prestigious friend there.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, she is.
Wow.
I like to keep her name in my back pocket. But no, what I love is that she also spent a lot of time up in a tree in her backyard. And that was me as a kid. I had a mango tree and I'd sit up there and I'd watch the birds and I'd catch lizards and always release them. But I really just loved being out in nature.
That's awesome.
Okay, so as you were growing up, did you also gravitate towards science classes in, say, middle school and high school? Or was it more just a personal interest and not so much school?
So I didn't view nature really connected to science. And the other thing that I didn't view was me, myself, as this overprotected, total girly girl as a scientist, because there weren't a lot of women scientists featured in my textbooks, and there weren't a lot of female science teachers. And so I'll be honest with you, I loved English, I loved art, I was interested in theater, all of these things that obviously, like, I thought at the time had nothing to do with science. What's interesting is when I got to college, I had to take a science requirement.
Right.
And I ended up choosing anthropology simply because it fit my schedule. No other reason.
Wow.
It just fit my schedule.
In the schedule.
And it was there that I discovered that my love of the outdoors and adventure and exploration, plus my love of animals, because I really was obsessed. I was an animal obsessed kid. I had lots of pets, dogs, cats, birds, fish, and a pet chicken named Margarita.
I love that.
But it was in that class that I saw people like Jane Goodall. I saw people like Diane Fossey and Bruhudi Galdikas. And I suddenly had this, we'll call it an aha moment, where I realized that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yes.
With a class that just fit into your schedule.
Right.
That's unbelievable.
But what's amazing is that background, the other passions I had, like, English and literature. So I had strong writing skills. I was actually a pre-law student. So, good way to set up arguments. Fit perfectly. Well, and I'm also, daughter of a Cuban mom. So definitely know how to argue.
There you go.
But I didn't know then, which is, of course, what I know now, is that those skills would come in really handy because as a scientist, writing is a huge component. Because you have to write scientific grants and you have to sort of argue the position that what you're applying to do is a very important and worthwhile research that needs to be funded. And so all of these interests that I had leading up to that moment where I discovered science was my path.
Wow.
It all came together.
That's fantastic. Because we've talked about it on the show before too. So I was in Girl Scouts and I did all those camping and all that kind of stuff. I know, right? But I don't now go out and camp like you do. So now I'm, my campground is the nearest hotel kind of thing.
So you don't hang a tent 14,000 feet up.
I do not. No, I do not. That is not on my to-do list. I heavily admire people that do that. But what I like is that you can find science, and that's kind of what we talk about on the show. You can find science kind of later in life, so to speak. Mm-hmm. You don't have to come to it. But now I want to know how you transitioned from that into primates. How did you, is that your main focus, or you just kind of stumbled into it?
So my transition is kind of even bigger than that, because while I was in college, I was also an NFL cheerleader for the Miami Dolphins.
How cool.
And so talk about really making a leap into the sciences, because you bring up a really good point. You can find science, or science can find you, basically at any point in life. And I think it was really intimidating thinking, oh, but all these other people have been doing, really focused on science like their whole lives. And I always tell, especially young girls who think, oh, but I'm a dancer or I'm an artist or, don't ever put yourself in a box. That you don't have to be pigeonholed. You can have all these interests and talents and all of these other things, and you can still be a scientist.
Yes.
But now, yes, my focus is on primates. So anthropology, which is where this all began.
Yes.
Is literally the study of man. Anthro.
Yep.
Right. And then ology, the study of. So it's the study of man. And we are primates.
Yes.
And so primates was a huge subsection of the course. And when I started learning about just how many of these primates are on the verge of extinction, and so many of them had never been studied. Some of them had never even been photographed. That is what really captured my attention.
What problem are we solving today?
How do you dress an astronaut?
How do you dress an astronaut? Oh my gosh, this is going to be so much fun. Who is our guest today, Jeff?
Our guest today is the one and only fabulous Sharon McDougall, former NASA spacesuit technician.
Welcome to the show, Sharon.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we are thrilled to have you. I mean, you get to do the coolest thing. Dress the astronauts, right?
I know. They were so lucky to have me suiting them up.
That's 100% right.
Yes.
Because that has to be done properly.
Yes.
Exactly. And I was the woman for the job.
Okay. So did you always know as a kid that you wanted to grow up to dress astronauts?
Well, Jen, I used to lie in the yard on a grassy knoll and stare up into the stars and say, one day I will work with the space program.
That's fun.
Not at all.
Oh. So how did you get into this? How did you get into this?
So unconventional. It came to me. I had no idea what I was going to do when I was in school. And then my knight in shining armor came and spoke to my high school class, Air Force recruiter. And he came and told us all about all the amazing things we could do in the Air Force. They paid for us to go to college, which was the main thing I was really looking for.
Right.
But then they gave me this amazing career. And I kept saying, I'll go next semester. I'll go next semester. I never went one semester. I was traveling the world in support of the aircraft and the pilots. And I mean, I was just having a blast. An 18-year-old kid right out of Mississippi, never been anywhere. And all of a sudden I'm in Japan at 18.
Wow. That's amazing.
So it was amazing. But it started off in the military. I was an aerospace physiology specialist.
Okay.
And that's where I learned how to work on the pressure suits, was in the Air Force. The SR-71 Blackbird. Y'all know about that bad girl, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And the U-2 reconnaissance. Both of those are reconnaissance aircraft. So they flew so high and so fast, they had to wear the pressure suits.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
So that's why I got my training, was working on those suits. And then I was in the Air Force 7 years. And when I decided to separate, I was struggling, as a lot of veterans do.
Right.
And I was about to re-enlist when a friend that was in the Air Force with me prior had already gone on, and he had been out here in Houston working with the space program for a few months, and they had an immediate opening. And so he found me and contacted me and told me.
Wow.
No.
That's how I got the job. So it wasn't like I always wanted to work there. I was looking and trying to get out there. It
was meant to be, though.
It was meant to be.
Absolutely. Because when you got into the Air Force, I can't imagine you were looking down the list of jobs looking for high pressure suits. Oh, yeah, there it is. Check that box.
And guess what, Jeff? You don't even pick your job when you go into service. They pick.
Correct.
They're going by your test scores. They look at what you were good at. And of course, what they need to feel as well, not just how good your test scores were.
Right.
Sure.
So the first job they wanted me to take was air traffic controller.
Oh, wow.
But they wanted me to come right away. That's when President Reagan was in office and the air traffic controllers were on strike. I know y'all probably too young.
Oh, no. I remember that. Yes.
So my principal, and let me show you how some people were set in place for me. My high school principal, even though I had the grades and I could have graduated earlier. She didn't want to set that precedence. And so she said no. And I'm glad she did because everybody, nope, they wouldn't be flying anymore because I would have crashed every plane into each other. So we would all be driving everywhere.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's probably a good thing then. Yes.
Yeah. And so the next job that came up for, that would be after I graduated high school was aerospace physiology. That fit my goals. So that's what I took. And I had to go to basic training, which, most militaries call it boot camp. We call it basic training.
Yep. I went to the Naval Academy. We called it plebe summer. So yeah.
Oh, did you? Okay, good.
Yeah, all the same thing.
So Okay.
Yeah.
What were you into? We in the service?
Yes.
What branch?
Air Force.
Yeah.
And you didn't tell me.
We were talking about other stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. We are Air Force kin. Yes.
Yes.
So I love how you are connecting those dots for our listeners that you're not necessarily going to know how the dots connect.
Yeah.
But if you let things happen and you make good choices and you recognize those opportunities when they come, that very good things can happen. So I want to know what it was like when you first switched over from those military pilot high pressure suits into NASA astronaut high pressure suits. Was that an easy switch or was there a lot of changes?
It was the easiest, just like walking to the next room.
Oh,
okay.
Let me tell you, many people don't know this unless they've listened to me, speak.
Sure.
The pressure suits came from the Air Force. NASA got the suits from the Air Force.
Okay.
Yep.
Remember the gold colored suits that the SR-71 pilots wore? If you look at the old astronaut pictures,
right?
And that same suit until they made a few adjustments and made it orange, but it's the same thing.
Okay.
Only thing that was different was the G suit part. That was the part that was different. Same thing. It's like the only thing I had to do was learn their policies and procedures when I got there, their culture.
Right. Yes.
Gotcha.
I hit the ground running. As soon as I got there, it was like, boop, 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 boop.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Nothing changed.
So while Jeff and I know what pressure suits are, it's possible that our listeners do not. Could you talk to us a little bit about what they are, what they do?
Most definitely. So whoever's listening, I don't want to say kids because I'm sure maybe some adults too.
Yes.
Listeners. So the pretty orange suits you see the astronauts wear for launch during the space shuttle era. And Artemis will have an orange one too, but they made a few changes. You'll have this blue V coming down the front and whatever, but it's the same pretty much. So the pressure suit is used for emergency situations. If the space shuttle lost cabin pressure and they have everything connected and on, they have to have everything on because if you have a glove off or your helmet off, that's like a big hole in the suit. So
yes.
It's not
right.
So you have to have everything connected for it to pressurize. So say they lost, I usually compare it to when you see the airplane movies and a hole getting in the cabin and stuff flying everywhere.
Yes.
So they're losing cabin pressure, right?
Right.
So in the shuttle, they would be able to put on all their equipment. And it could happen when they're probably coming back.
Right.
More than likely. So the suit itself would sense that cabin pressure change. Let me see. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but see that little round silver thing right here?
Yes.
That's the dual suit controller. That is the heart of the suit.
Okay.
That is what senses that cabin pressure change and will automatically pressurize and keep them safe inside until they get altitude to bail out if they have to bail out. The second part of it is if they needed to bail out, it's good with the hypothermia situation because 99% chance they're when they bail out. So they'll land in the water. It can protect them that way too with the hypothermia and waiting for somebody to come rescue them, which will be quick because they have beacons and radios that go off if they have to bail out. So they wouldn't be in the water very long. And then they have a one-person life raft attached to the parachute that they can crawl into once they get into the water as well.
Jennifer, you were right. Just picking 5 is such a hard thing to do, but you really nailed some absolutely fun episodes in this list and such interesting people to talk to about what they do.
Yeah, I mean, we've had so many amazing guests, and it was, again, really hard to pick the ones that they want. So take a listen to all of these. You can go back and listen to them in their entirety at anywhere you listen to your podcast, or of course on our website, solveforkids.com. And if you have a favorite episode you want to share with us, don't forget to tag us on our social media. We are at KidsSolve at Facebook and Instagram. You can leave us messages, and we'd love to hear from you.
Whether it's our favorite best of episodes or your favorite best of episodes, Until next time, you'll hear Jen and Jeff on Solve It for Kids.